everyone, welcome back to Pages and Screens. I'm Erin and today I'm going to be doing my August wrap up for you guys. I honestly cannot believe that August is over and we're now in September. Like, oh my god, I go to university this month and I'm like so shocked. Anyway, we're here today to talk about all the things that I read in August and all the things that I watched. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it. I'm going to be starting off with all the books that I read this month. The first book I read this month was All That She Can See by Carrie Hope Fletcher. I enjoyed this book, but I enjoyed her previous book On the Other Side a lot more. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars because I found that it just dragged a little bit and the story was a little bit boring and I didn't really attach myself to the characters all that much. This book basically follows the main character called Cherry, and she can see other people's emotions. She sees the bad emotions of people. They kind of manifest themselves as little creatures. So each bad emotion, she sees that as a creature and she calls them medlums. And it's about her journey through life having that ability. And then one day the story kind of picks up when she meets someone else with the same ability called Chase. As I said, I think that Carrie's previous work was a lot better. I really enjoyed her first book On the Other Side and I'm kind of a little bit disappointed with this book. I think I will still read whatever she's writing next. I'll give that a chance, but I was a little bit disappointed with this book. The next book I read this month was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Aliris Sands, and this book was absolutely phenomenal. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read this while I was travelling to my holiday in Spain and I was just sat in the airport and on the plane absolutely devouring this book. This honestly blew me away. I adored the story of Aristotle and Dante. If you haven't heard of this book, which I'd be surprised if you haven't because it is so hyped, basically the story follows Aristotle and Dante, two teenage boys living in the 1980s, and they basically become really good friends, kind of about their relationship and kind of their struggles in life. I'd recommend it to anyone that just wants a really beautifully written story about friendship. The next book I read was The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heelig. This story follows a young time traveller called Nix, who basically her and her father have the ability to travel through time on this pirate ship that they have, and Nix's father is on a mission to get back to the time and place which her mother gave birth to her, because sadly her mother passed away when she was born and her father is desperate to get back that love that he lost. However, this comes with a risk of Nix's life. Potentially she might never have been born if they managed to make it back. So it's quite an interesting time travel story, and I really enjoyed the setting because it's set in Hawaii in, I think it's the 1700s, and I really enjoyed that setting. I love Hawaii. It's one of the places that I most want to travel to in my life, so I picked up this book mainly because of the setting and also because the time travel pirate ship element just sounded so cool to me, and I actually really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book I read while I was on holiday was The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. This has been one of my most highly anticipated reads of the summer, and honestly guys, it did not disappoint. Morgan Matson is probably one of my 2 favourite contemporary authors alongside Stephanie Perkins. She just writes such believable characters and storylines, and I absolutely love her writing. This, alongside Since You've Been Gone, has been my favourite book of hers that I've read so far, because the characters were so relatable and they reminded me a lot of myself. The Unexpected Everything follows Andy, who is a really organised control freak, and she has everything planned out for the summer. She planned to go to a med school, kind of summer camp. She had it all figured out so that she could get into a good university and be away from her father, who's a politician and is going through a scandal. But then one day she gets kicked off the med programme, finds out she has to spend the entire summer living with her father, and she has to get a job walking dogs. And basically this summer takes a very unexpected turn for Andy. However, she kind of learns over the course of this book to take it in her stride and ends up having a really great summer. I knew going into this book that I would love it just because Morgan Matson is such a great writer, and I honestly adored it so much. It's been one of my favourite books I've read this year. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Honestly guys, if you're looking for a contemporary read, I would highly recommend this book. Then the next book I read on Kindle, and that was Before I Die by Jenny Downham. This book I have had on my TBR for quite a while. It follows the story of a young girl who has terminal cancer, and she decides that she wants to complete kind of a bucket list of sorts of things she wants to do before she dies, and the book follows her completing those. I had this on my TBR for a while, and it's just one of those books that I was never really getting around to reading because honestly I find that sometimes cancer stories can be quite cliche and overdone. I hate to say that because it is such a serious and important topic. My suspicions were correct and I didn't really enjoy this. I kind of read it for the sake of reading it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but probably more like 2.5 out of 5 stars to be honest. I liked it, but I didn't relate to any of the characters, and that wasn't because of the situations they were in. It was because of the people that they were. They weren't very nice, they weren't very relatable, and the story as well was quite boring. The next book, again, I didn't really enjoy, and that was Atonement by Ian McEwan. I bought this for like 50p at a charity shop, and it's just been sat on my shelf for like 2 years. So I kind of forced myself to read it by bringing it on holiday with me. I did end up reading it. I read the entire thing. It was really, really boring. I've seen the film, so I already knew what would happen. So there wasn't any of that mystery or intrigue regarding the plot. I honestly feel like this book could have been 100 pages long rather than 3. It was just dragged so much. There was way too much description. Basically, it follows the story of Cecilia and Robbie as they have this scandalous affair. Cecilia's younger sister Bryony basically watches their relationship pan out. She basically jumps to conclusions with what she's seen because she is young and impressionable 13-year-old girl, and she basically tells a lie about the couple that leads to their downfall and leads to a lot of fallout and heartbreak and tragedy, and then it kind of goes into World War II and follows the lives of the 3 characters that were involved in this scandal in 1935. And honestly, it sounds really intriguing and dark and mysterious, but the payoff of this book and the resolution is just not what you would expect, and it's not fulfilling, it's not cathartic, and I just don't really enjoy the story at all. And I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, which is incredibly low for me, and I hate to say that I just really, really did not enjoy reading this book. The next book I read was part of a little challenge for me, and that was Landline by Rainbow Rowell. This helped me complete all of Rainbow Rowell's books. This was the final Rainbow Rowell book that I had to read. I read every single one of her books now, including the short novella that she wrote, Kindred Spirits. I am so proud of myself that I managed to do that. I don't think in my entire life I've ever read an author's full body of works, and I'm so happy that I managed to get this read. I will admit that this wasn't my favourite Rainbow Rowell book. I don't tend to enjoy her adult literature as much as I enjoy her young adult. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it, but I didn't love it. This book is about a TV writer, Georgie McCool, which is such a funny name, and she basically finds this telephone that connects her to her past self, and she basically has the chance to right old wrongs and fix the mistakes that are going on in her present day life by calling the past. I didn't really love this book. I kind of just read it for the sake of reading it. I really wanted to be able to say that I'd read all of Rainbow's works, and I finally can, and I'm really, really happy about it. Then the next book I read was P.S. I Like You by Casey West. This was my first Casey West book that I've ever read, and I have to say I will be reading Casey West books again because this was honestly just the cutest, most fluffiest contemporary romance I read in a long time. It came on par with The Unexpected Everything for me this month. They were 2 of my favourite romances / contemporary reads that I've read. I loved this book. I read it in 1 day. I absolutely adore the main character Lily and her story. This book follows Lily as she is bored in chemistry class one day and decides to scribble her favourite song lyrics on the desk. But when she comes back the next day to class, someone has continued the lyrics on the desk, and this basically sets into motion Lily and her pen pal writing back and forth all year, and she has no clue who it is, but it's this mysterious boy and she doesn't know who it is, and she is trying to figure out what boy in the whole school she is talking to. The romance in this book was so cute. I was gushing so much reading this book. I loved it so much. I obviously gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The next 3 books I'm going to talk about, I don't have any physical copies of them. I read them all on Kindle, so that's why I have nothing to hold up for you guys. And the first one was Bad Girl Throughout History. This was a non-fiction book, basically listing 100 badass, remarkable females throughout history. It's basically what it says in the tin. It was such a feminist read, and it was so interesting to read about all these female icons throughout history that have really changed the way that people treat women and the way that women perceive themselves, and I just found it to be such an inspiring and enlightening read, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because it was just such an empowering read, and one that I think is quite important for anyone who is a girl to read. The next book I read was Anne of Avonlea, which is the second book in the Anne of Green Gables series by L.M. Montgomery. I absolutely love Anne of Green Gables. I read it last month for Booktubeathon, and ever since I just can't stop thinking about it. It's one of those books that's really hit home with me, and I've been thinking about a lot after reading it. It's got to be one of my favourite books of the year just because of that fact. I love Anne Shirley so much, and I love Gilbert, I love Diana, I love Marilla, I love all the characters in Avonlea, and I have to admit that this book wasn't what I expected, because I was kind of hoping that Anne of Avonlea would focus solely on Anne and Gilbert's relationship, because that's what I'd heard. However, that's what apparently I've been told now that the third book is when Anne and Gilbert's relationship really picks up. Anne of Avonlea basically picks up where the first book left off, and it takes place over the course of 2 years rather than when the first book takes place over the course of 6. It follows Anne as she's a teacher at the Avonlea school, and basically a lot of new characters are introduced. And I don't really want to talk too much about it because it is the second book and you should read Anne of Green Gables first, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I didn't enjoy it as much as Anne of Green Gables, but I still absolutely loved it. The next book I read this month was Moxie by Jennifer Matthew, and holy crap guys, this book was one of my favourite reads of the entire year. I have not cried at a book in so long. I honestly thought that my emotions were dead, but this book touched my soul. It was so empowering, so badass, and so freaking important for girls to read. Honestly, please read it. It is a book all about feminism. Basically, Moxie follows our main character Viv as she basically says fuck you to all the patriarchal bullshit that goes on in her school and decides to do something about it, and she starts a feminist revolution. And the book follows so many girls getting together from different social groups and demographics, and it's really a book all about girl power and feminism, and I absolutely adored it because you should probably know that I'm a huge feminist and it's such an important topic to me. This book was everything I didn't know I needed until I read it. Thank you so much to Jennifer Matthew for writing this book. Honestly, 5 out of 5 stars, hands down. I would give it more if I could. I loved this book. It is definitely going to be ranking as one of my favourite books of the year as well. The 12th and final book I read this month was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I have been meaning to read this book for so long because I really enjoy like high school literature, you know, stories like Of Mice and Men, Lord of the Flies, all those kind of modern classics, and The Outsiders was just a book that I never really got around to reading, and I finally managed to read it this month. Basically, The Outsiders follows 2 rival gangs, the Socks and the Greasers, and the story is basically all about this rivalry and gang culture and the group of boys that are the Greasers. It predominantly focuses on the Greasers and the story of our main character Ponyboy, who has quite a sensitive demeanour and a kind of a softer side to him than most of the other members of the gang, and it's just such a tragic read, and it's quite gut-wrenching at times and quite emotional. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would and as much as other people have. However, I did think it was a really well written book, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So now moving into all the films I watched this month. I am quite ashamed to say that I only watched 4 films this month, which is really bad for me. Normally I watch a lot more movies than that. However, I am gonna give myself a bit of credit and say that I did move house this month, so I haven't had as much time to watch films as I would have liked. The first film I watched this month was Apocalypse Now, which basically is just a film set during the Vietnam War. A group of soldiers basically go on a mission to find a crazed army commander as he has kind of abandoned the army and has gone a bit psycho. Honestly, I did not love this film. I gave it a 6 out of 10 because it was wonderfully made and wonderfully directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was crafted wonderfully, however the storyline and the characters were just lacking and I didn't really enjoy it. I feel like Francis Ford Coppola is a very masculine director and I enjoy quite feminine films and films that focus on slightly more sensitive topics than, you know, war and gang. Very macho themes, so that's why I tend not to enjoy his films as much. So I did give this a 6 out of 10, however I didn't love it. Then the next film I watched this month was Interstellar, which is a sci-fi film. And basically Interstellar revolves around Cooper, who is an ex-pilot turned astronaut now, following basically the death of Earth. Earth is dying in this film, dust is taking over and is killing all the crops. Life is slowly dying away on Earth and it's not very habitable anymore. So Cooper is sent out with a team of astronauts to basically go through a wormhole that has been discovered and basically try and find another planet to colonise. And it's a very, very complicated sci-fi film. Nolan has created an extremely complex story, however, it's just absolutely genius. As complex as it is absolutely wonderful. I gave it 8 out of 10. I loved Interstellar so much. The emotional factors were handled so wonderfully and the characters were phenomenal. The storyline was excellent. It was so tragic but hopeful at the same time and I absolutely loved it. The next film I watched this month was Sunset Boulevard. I really wanted to get round to watching like a classic Hollywood film and I thought what better than to watch a Billy Wilder film. Sunset Boulevard follows the downfall of a silent film star as she teams up with kind of a failing screenwriter. She basically tries to make it back into the Hollywood scene and things don't go well, much to true film noir and Wilder tradition. It was a very dark film. The performances in it were very theatrical and very over the top and elaborate. I really enjoyed the craftsmanship of this film. The performances were really well executed, however I didn't really enjoy the story, which is why I gave it a 6 out of 10 again. And then the final film I watched this month was Lincoln. I haven't cried at a film in a while, however Lincoln really touched me. Obviously Lincoln was a truly inspiring American president and he's hailed as one of the best. His run as president was just so inspiring and so moving, how he stood up for the civil rights of slaves and abolished slavery. It was such a good film. I gave it a 7 out of 10. If any of you haven't seen it and are interested in American history, I'd highly recommend it. It was a wonderful biopic on Abraham Lincoln's life. Okay, so although I may not have watched that many movies this month, I watched a lot of TV shows, and I mean a lot. I watched 5 TV shows this month, one of which was a mini-series, but the rest were full series. So the first TV show I watched this month was a mini-series. It was a 2-part mini-series, and that was Anne of Green Gables. I watched the Canadian mini-series of Anne of Green Gables that came out in the 1980s, starring Megan Fellows. This was wonderful. I tried to watch the new Anne of Green Gables series, Anne, that's out on Netflix, but honestly the tone of that show was nothing like the tone of the book and it just totally ripped away all the magic and all the enchantment that was Anne of Green Gables and I hated it so much. So I turned it off. I went and found the Canadian miniseries and I absolutely devoured that instead because it was wonderful. The Canadian miniseries just totally got what Anne of Green Gables was about and what Ellen Montgomery was trying to portray with her book. So I really enjoyed the miniseries way more than the new show. If any of you are trying to watch Anne of Green Gables, I'd highly recommend the Canadian miniseries over the new series that's out now. The next TV show I watched this month was Riverdale and I flew through this. I did not expect to love it as much as I did. Oh my god, I need to talk about Jughead because I absolutely love Jughead so much. He is my baby. He's my new love. I love him. It was... I'm not even going to get into anything because I will start spoiling it for you guys. Riverdale is based off the Archie comics and it follows the death of Jason Blossom in a small town, Riverdale in America. It follows a group of friends that live in the town as they kind of have to deal with the fallout of his death and the investigation of his murder and things like that. But it's not a heavy show. It sounds like it'll be quite a heavy murder mystery, a bit like Pretty Little Liars. That's what I thought going into it. Honestly, the show mainly focuses on the relationships between the friends and the characters rather than the death of Jason Blossom. The death of Jason Blossom is what fuels the plot but not what the show's focus is about. The next show I watched was Girl Boss, which is out on Netflix. I kid you not, I watched this show in one day. I watched it in less than 24 hours and I am devastated that this show got cancelled. There is only 1 season of it. It has not been renewed for season 2. I am so devastated. I adored this show. It was just such a fun, easy watch. The characters were so funny. The main character is so morally grey. Like, I loved her and then I hated her. It follows the creation of Nasty Gal, the fashion line, and the woman who created that, and it was just such a fun watch, and I would highly recommend it if you need something light and easy to watch. I didn't watch the entirety of this show this month because it's been going on for the last 2 months, and that is obviously Game of Thrones. I'm not going to get too much into my thoughts on this because I do have a full season 7 review for Game of Thrones down below, and also I couldn't even sum up what Game of Thrones is about anyway because we're in season 7 now and I don't want to spoil it for anyone. So if you do want to hear my thoughts on Game of Thrones season 7, I'm going to leave the link to that down below and you can check it out. Although I will say that season 7 of Game of Thrones has been my favourite season so far. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing, and where the heck is season 8 because I need it right now. And the final TV show that I watched was The American Office. I love this show. It is the second time that I've watched it. I absolutely adore this show. It's so funny, it's so good. Please just go watch it if you haven't seen it. I would recommend this alongside Parks and Rec. Both those shows are some of my favourite comedies. So that brings us to the end of my August wrap up. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!